Warning, this video contains my opinion. Today I'm going to be doing a review on Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho is one of the traditional shonen series that sort of started off all the sort of trends and tropes in shonen. It's quite old and pretty much everything has already been said about it, so my review will be both to review the basics and for anyone to determine if they actually want to watch the show based on what I say about it. Yu Yu Hakusho is made by Yoshihiro Togashi, who you might know as the creator of Hunter x Hunter. The manga of Yu Yu Hakusho ran on Shonen Jump from December 3rd, 1990 to July 24th, 1994. And the manga consists of 175 chapters. So, while it is a part of one of the, sort of longer shonen series, it's not that long in comparison to something like Bleach or Naruto. Yu Yu Hakusho also had an anime, which ran from October 10th, 1992 to December 17th, 1994. The Yu Yu Hakusho anime consists of 112 episodes, but I did read the manga of Yu Yu Hakusho, and while the two versions between anime and manga are decently consistent, that might want to be taken into consideration if you're considering checking out the anime version of Yu Yu Hakusho. And also because I read the manga, I can't really speak on how the pacing was in the anime. It could have been really bad, it could have been really good, I don't know. Yu Yu Hakusho follows Yusuke Urameshi as he becomes a better person and spirit detective and becomes more confident in himself and saves the world and his friends. Classic shonen junk. The main characters are Yusuke Urameshi, the main character, Hiei, Kurama, and Kuwabara, which make up the four quartet main fighters. If I were to describe Hiei, he's sort of emo, dark-haired main rival, sort of like Sasuke, but Hiei came first, so I guess Sasuke is like Hiei. Kurama's like the, calm, cool, calculating one who's actually kind of nice. That's how I'd describe him. Yusuke's like a delinquent, but, is actually nice underneath after you get past all the being an absolute jerk in the first few chapters. Kuwabara is sort of like the macho, dumb one who always gets in too over his head. Another sort of central character in the story is Keiko, who is Yusuke's love interest. And I think her and Yusuke have a decent romance, especially in shonen standards, but they never actually get together in the series, which is pretty much to be expected with shonen love stories. Another important character to the story is Genkai, who is Yusuke's sort of master that trains him. And I think that she is quite a competent and, well-rounded character. Her character is interesting, and she's got a distinctive personality. And you might be thinking, a lot of these characters fall into the typical shonen tropes. That's because Yu Yu Hakusho is one of the shows that actually coined these tropes, because Yu Yu Hakusho is what a lot of, modern shonen's based off of, along with something like Dragon Ball. Also, when you're watching the show, those tropes might seem kind of played out when watching it, but you do have to consider that back in the day, it wasn't as tropey, the characters' personalities, as they would be today, considering Yu Yu Hakusho was the OG show, so you do have to remember that. Now, like I said, I haven't watched the anime, but the animation is, of course, a little dated. From what I've seen, it's not terrible, but it's old. What do you expect? I mean, it's not even a 2000s anime. It's quite old by anime standards. Some people might not think it's old because that's what they grew up with, but modern anime fans would definitely think it looks old. It's not Demon Slayer quality, so don't expect that. I don't think it's bad, like the animation. It's just old, so if you want to watch it, expect quality animation. But as someone who read the manga, I think the art still holds up quite well. Like, you could tell me that's a manga made today and I'd believe it, which is one of the reasons why I prefer manga. To me, manga doesn't usually look as dated as anime does, because how can drawings look dated? That's how I feel about it anyway. So I think the manga art still holds up pretty well. I think the panels are nicely structured. In terms of originality, Yu Yu Hakusho is old. I can't speak on how original it was because I haven't watched all that many older animes, but Yu Yu Hakusho probably was more original back when it came out. Today it seems super tropey, like I said, but Yu Yu Hakusho is the one who created the tropes. So, it might not seem all that original by today's standards, but it might have been more original back then. For like the world building and setting, it takes place in modern day Japan, and things like the spirit world, which you'd think are super important, and they are, and the demon world aren't very well explored, especially the demon world. They're kind of just like background settings. It's not at all like One Piece where you have like everything's explored, like the culture and everything. They're just sort of settings. You don't really know anything about like the demon world or the spirit world. It's not something that's incredibly noticeable when watching it, I don't think, but yeah, the different worlds aren't very well fleshed out. And some people might not think that it needs to be fleshed out, but that's the way it is. I also do want to mention that there really isn't much fan service in Yu Yu Hakusho that I can remember. To be fair, there isn't really that many female characters, so it'd be kind of hard, but I think there's a little bit, but if you don't like fan service, then hey, success. The power system in Yu Yu Hakusho is not like Nin. It's not very explored very much. It's kind of just simple. You don't really have to know anything about it, and you can kind of just infer from what characters say. You don't really have to have any sort of background on the power system. It's very simple and more like Ki or something. For the issues I had with the series, I really didn't have that many issues until the last arc, which, of course, the last arc was rushed. That's just a fact. Togashi wanted the series to end, and so he ended it. So that is something to take into note. The last arc, it genuinely feels so rushed and slapped together. I mean, they probably should have just ended it after the previous arc. I don't really even see what this arc adds on. It feels more like fan fiction than anything. It's not all that great. They had stuff set up in the final arc, but a lot of things weren't developed. There's a big time skip, and nothing really came to fruition, and it just felt like they just needed to have a big climactic conclusion as quickly as possible, and they didn't have time to flesh it out. I wouldn't say it's horrible or anything like that, but it just feels like, wow, it starts moving really, really quickly out of nowhere, and your head's just sort of spinning like, what happened? Also, the whole demon genes thing is pretty cliche. It might not have been as so back in the day, but I just couldn't help but laugh when that came up. I was like, that's where that trope came from. Like I talked about, in the final arc, there was a lot of time skips, and it really just felt like they were zipping around and just wanted it to end. I mean, I don't know really what else to say. I also dislike the use of time skips usually in general. Some media can do it well, like One Piece, I think, did the time skip pretty well, but when they start having rapid time skips, you know that they've run out of ideas. It's never a good sign. Also, another issue with, maybe not even the final arc, maybe the arc before that too, was a massive amount of power creep, which power creep usually becomes a problem when there's a bunch of time skips, which is another bad thing about time skips. But they needed Yusuke and the rest to become stronger, so they had to make it so, even though it didn't really make any sense. How they built up the S rank demons to be super, super powerful and stuff. And then, everyone's on the same level as them, even though it doesn't make any sense. Because they have to have it climactic. They can't just have the good guys all get beaten at the end. And the reason why is they built up the bad guys as these super big, impenetrable monsters, and then they have to defeat them or be as strong as them or around the same strength. So there has to be a bunch of time skips and rapid power creep, which is why you don't make big, strong monsters that can't be beaten without a lot of work and preparation, and then you have to beat those guys in the next arc. It's never a good idea. Also, I have to say, Kuwabara wasn't my favorite character, but I felt bad for him, how he just got left in the dust. Everyone's just like, he's too weak. And then he was gone, never to be seen again. Poor guy just truly got the shaft. Also, in the last tournament, which they threw together at the last minute because they couldn't have a long drawn out war or conflict, they, at least in the manga, I actually noticed in the anime they didn't do it quite as much of a disservice, but in the manga they just skipped through all of the fights. They just showed like one panel of people like squaring up, and then it was like, and then the next fight, and then it was like, it's just such a like genuine like whiplash you get, because the tournament in the earlier part of the series was so well paced and they showed all of the fights or enough of the fights that you needed, but this tournament is so poorly paced and stuff is just flying around everywhere. It's so noticeable because they have something done really well in the same format as something done really poorly. I wouldn't say the ending bad. I'd just say it's quite anticlimactic when you know what they could have made and what they chose not to make. And hey, we all know Togashi's been struggling for a while, so it's good that he at least finished Yu Yu Hakusho. My final thoughts are that the first part of the series up to the last arc and a little bit of the second to the last arc are good. And I think it's good enough to get you through the last arc, which is iffy. It's not bad, it's just iffy, which you can definitely tell they had issues, even if you didn't know what was going on with the series. I think that if you like longer shonens with battle and action and some classic tropes, and you run out of stuff to read or watch, definitely give Yu Yu Hakusho a shot. I think it's pretty good. It's not short, but it's also not super long, so if you don't think it's all that incredible, it's not all that long. And I don't know if 175 chapters is not all that long. I think things like One Piece and Naruto and Bleach have obscured how long is to me, so keep that in mind. Overall, I would recommend Yu Yu Hakusho if you like shonen, despite its issues. Just remember, it might have a few problems, but like all shows, you just have to deal with it. Anyway, that's it for my review on Yu Yu Hakusho. Bye!